Delinquents, a bike riding, hair greasing, street fighting bunch. You know the stereotype. From the rockabilly greasers of the 50s and 60s in The Outsiders, Grease, West Side Story, to across the globe in Yu Yu Hakusho, Tokyo Revengers, and all the other anime that feature this character trope. Delinquents in these stories are an eye-catching figure, sporting distinct visual styles of the pompadours and dyed hair, school uniforms with the sleeves ripped off or worn over the shoulders, baggy clothes, sarashi bandages that call back to old samurai traditions, commissar caps and long jackets and blunt weapons in their hands, all making for a cool and tough aesthetic. Moreover, the delinquents' often brash behavior is another point of intrigue, from their fearless indifference to academic duties and authorities, to an incessant pattern of bullying and brawling, or simply speaking with loud voices and rolled R's, which, in Japan, project a sense of anger and rudeness. All of these features mean that there's plenty of reason to find the delinquent trope interesting. But I think there are deeper psychological reasons why we are drawn to these rebels without a cause. For a long time, the teenage delinquent has served as an image of our social disillusionments. To understand this, we can maybe turn to a survey of real-life delinquency. A 1982 study conducted by Japanese researchers found that while delinquent students didn't report higher levels of alienation than their peers, they were notably more distrustful of people. Meanwhile, the general Japanese teenager has been steadily catching up to this attitude as well. Research in the 2000s observed that the largest growing personality type among Japanese young people has been the malcontent, characterized by a lack of sociability and a strong distrust of others. It's no wonder that Japanese teens, the target consumers of manga and anime, increasingly find comfort in the very embodiment of social distrust, the delinquent. These characters are no fans of authority and society as it currently stands, but unlike revolutionaries and activists, they don't so much want to overhaul the system as they just want to be left alone. Unlike hikikomoris, though, these young degenerates form their own societies, their own gangs, their own territories. They want nothing to do with society outside the one they've created. This is parallel, perhaps, to our fascination with mafia movies and secret societies like the John Wick universe, where people with unconventional values form a world of their own, with its own rules and conflicts and allegiances, unperturbed by traditional power structures. The study that I mentioned earlier describes the exact profile of a Japanese reader who would love reading about this sort of thing. The study concludes that a considerable number of young Japanese are dissatisfied with the world and the adults who run it, but they have no wish to take their place, preferring instead to spend time with a small number of friends and create their own environments surrounded only by what appeals to them. I mean, isn't this what delinquents do in anime? The emergence of stories like Tokyo Revengers, Durarara, and Windbreaker aren't uncalled for. They dive into the formations and politics of gangs as a form of world building, a literary escapism direly sought by teenagers and adults alike. But that's not the only appeal of Delinquents. You see, stories with delinquent protagonists in anime can be separated into two types, the gang leaders or the dreamers. It used to be that the dreamer type was more popular. Think village troublemaker Naruto, or the red-haired, self-proclaimed basketball genius Sakuragi. Delinquents are socially disillusioned, but this never kept them from having dreams. In the aforementioned 1982 report, the authors note that teenage delinquents seem to exhibit a greater tendency to fantasize about things, answering yes to questions like, I wish to become a TV personality, or I wish to score it with a girl I love. Now, the authors of the study seem to frame this as a character defect. Indeed, the excessive sexual romantic desire of delinquents, like in Great Teacher Onizuka and Slam Dunk, is a slightly unsavory staple of the delinquent trope, in my opinion. But the draw of fantasy is not something to scoff at. Delinquents are a bit rude, but they reserve the courage to dream. As they are perceived as the do-no-gooders, the lowlife of society, Conversely, these characters have immense drive to prove themselves, and in this way, they are endlessly inspiring. This is what art does, and this is what artists do. They see the world with an unbelievable keenness. The fact that delinquents are dreamers and world builders comes intuitively to the storyteller. Art searches for exemplars in the most unlikely places and elevates oppressive social labels to the role of heroes. Of course, admittedly, the delinquent character is not a precise echo of the multifarious forms that life can take in the real world. Very few tropes are. For instance, early delinquency is often caused by dysfunctional family relationships, mental illness, as well as many other factors seldom confronted in the more romanticized image of delinquency. But the primary function of this trope is not so much social commentary as it is an emotional vessel to carry our discontents and our fantasies. When a delinquent character punches a despicable bully, most of us can think back to the times when we wanted to do something like that. And as we, the audience, live vicariously through them, delinquents offer a cathartic release of our most intrusive thoughts, sparing us from acting on them in real life. In this way, the delinquent hero is very similar to the superhero. They form stories in which violence and physical intimidation find refuge in the very few cases in which they are justified and legitimized, or, at the very least, sympathetic. Tokyo Revengers and Windbreaker are battle mangas within the realm of possibility, and delinquency is the only way teenage high school characters can realistically become seasoned fighters without having to become ninjas or detectives or ninja detectives. The point, however, is not violence itself, but fighting as a metaphor for the other things in life that we care about. What delinquents show us is that we are allowed to be assertive while protecting what is important. In Tokyo Revengers, author Wakui Ken names his protagonist Takemichi, meaning the martial way or way of samurai. Indeed, many modern Yakuza members claim to be the descendants of Ronins, and they practice samurai rituals accordingly. By breaking away from conventional society, delinquent characters are free to express values that are no longer tenable in normal life, ancient values that linger in the gaps of our world like ghosts haunting the streets. But delinquents, these lawless, ruffian personalities, cross these gaps to enact a romantic code of honor, and they have no problems with going through hell to protect it. And as we watch them do so, these values might just find their way back to ordinary life. That's why, for me, the delinquent is such a compelling character.